It is 9 a.m. on a Saturday, March 4th here in Bangkok, Thailand. Just to get started real quick, Thai baht 34.44. It had been over 35. Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. If you can't, let me know. Good morning, everybody. Sawati Ton Chow. Anyway, the baht has dipped below 35 again to the dollar. It's still 34.44. It's currently 78 degrees Fahrenheit. 93 is the high. 73 is the low. The feel-like temperature is 79. It's going to be sunny here all week. Humidity is only 55%, so it's pretty good. Winds about 5 miles an hour to the southwest, or 9 kilometers an hour. Visibility is 22 kilometers, and the air quality is a horrible, unhealthy 158 in Bangkapi here. And all throughout Bangkok, the pollution is getting to be a problem. It's such a problem that the media is now writing about how they need to do something about the the government needs to do something about the pollution because it's going to affect tourism. And I don't blame the media for writing this because I do think it's a problem. But before I go any further, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Carlos and also Patia Bob, who I met up with the dynamic duo yesterday. It was very nice to see them again. Carlos was just coming in from America. And yeah, that's part of the problem. First of all, the government may not want to do anything simply because they figure the problem will go away. And the problem being the media. The media will lose interest and they'll just be like, that's the end of it. What are you going to do? I don't think that's very wise. There's a lot of things that the Thai government does that I don't think are all that wise. But then again, that's how I feel about the U.S. government. And I just, at some point you just have to let it go and say, what are you going to do? Sometimes you just have to not worry about stuff. And like I've said, eventually we will move away from here. And one of the reasons, first of all, is because of the pollution, but also because it would be nice to get to a little more of a laid back place where it's not such a concrete jungle. And I was out yesterday running around. And while my trips to and from Sukhumvit, the Sukhumvit area yesterday, were not too bad, all things considered, there's still just so much traffic, and it's just such a pain in the neck getting around. And a place, I've said it a million times, you want to go somewhere and it takes 30 minutes to get there without any traffic, but then it's going to take an hour and a half or two if there's traffic. So how fun is that? I mean, I don't personally like wasting my time sitting in a taxi. Sometimes if you really got to go somewhere, or you really want to go somewhere, then you just got to do it. You got to suck it up and just make the journey. I mean, my kids, Alex, not necessarily Nicholas, but when he comes home, it takes him 2 hours to get home. And Alex has to take a trip every day. My wife goes 3-4 times a week down into the center of the city. And this is an issue in Bangkok, but it's like this in every major city. So, but anyway, the reason I thought about this staying safe and the dangers of Thailand is basically all the articles coming out lately about things happening to tourists and things happening to people. Recently, what do you need? You sure you don't want this one?
No.
You want the I Love Thailand?
Bye.
All right, bye. Because there's been lots of mistakes made. And I think the Thais, the traffic is worse in Manila, Andy. And you know, we were looking at tickets the other day, and we found a ticket that went through Manila, but the layover in Manila was 8 hours. I'm like, no, no way, no way. I can't stand that airport. It's probably, in my eyes, it's probably the worst airport in the world. That's my opinion. It is the worst airport in the world. Just a mass of people and it's just chaos, and I don't want to go there. If I don't have to go there, I'm not going to go there. You know, uh, and traffic. You try to go from Manila to Angeles City or somewhere like that. It's just getting around. It's far worse here. You know, at least here you have the BTS, you have motorbikes, you have boat taxis, and they're working towards electric and all this kind of stuff. So, but that's neither here nor there. The reason, like I said, that I'm talking about this is because of all the things that have been happening lately, and then really in the past few years, and probably all the time, but we just don't know about it. We just don't hear about it as often. But if you have been watching the news at all, or watching my channel at anamericaninbangkok.com, please visit that channel. You know that some things have happened. Now, a bouncer, and I talked about this a little bit. Why is this? This is really irritating. My phone is irritating because this phone caused me to crash my drone, and the brightness goes up and down sometimes. So eventually, I'm going to need to replace this thing, but you know, we'll wait it out. A bouncer at Calasan Road handcuffed and then smacked this foreign tourist. Now, apparently this guy spoke Thai, and this guy, in my opinion, if you go into a bar and you think the water is free and you just don't even ask anybody, that's just stupid. I mean, really, that's idiotic. How many bars have you been to in your lifetime where they have water sitting out and they go, okay, you don't have to pay for this water, drink up? It's ridiculous. So I think this guy was a bonehead, but I don't think that people need to be, yeah, I got my pilot's license pulled. I don't think that I don't think in any case people need to lay their hands on another person, especially a tourist. These people, they're out of their minds. It's like here's the thing. They beg for the tourists to come, and then when the tourists come, even one or two incidences, you know, one bad apple. That's all it takes. And then people see it and they go, Some people will pass because of these things. They'll go, I'll go somewhere else. I don't need to go there. And then let's see here. Now it's been about a week, a little more than a week. A tuk-tuk driver attacked a foreign tourist. And this was another case of the guy not following the rules, the foreigner not really following the rules. Yeah, well, that's my point. First of all, a bouncer, what is, if you think about something, if you know how to fight, or you're a big guy, I can handle this guy, it's not a problem. And granted, you need to always believe that you can't, but in your head, I can pick this guy up with one hand if I want and hold him out in front of me. He weighs about $110, and I'm 250 pounds, and I'm strong, and I'm, young. He's old, which wasn't the case. Why do you need to exert your authority? You know why? Because they felt like, this is an opportunity. I get to smack somebody around. And that's just bullying. And, what I always say is, think about it this way. Would you be so apt to stand up and fight if it was somebody that was 275 pounds, all muscle, and they knew how to break bones and hurt people? Most people are not going, they would go, okay, let me think twice about how I approach this situation. My cat is going, he's so crazy now. Sid is just a nutcase. He's constantly doing things he shouldn't be doing. He gets put in jail. We got a crate, and we have to put him in there sometimes because he goes berserk. He's just a nutcase, and my wife just left, so of course now he's he's getting pissy, which he does when she leaves sometimes. So anyway, but this tuk-tuk driver bashed into a female taxi driver's taxi, and then he tried to weasel his way out of it. He didn't want to take responsibility. This foreigner kind of goes, well, I saw it, and he made the mistake of stepping into range. You don't need to get, first of all, you don't need to get in anybody's face. You need to always remember, even if you don't know how to fight, especially if you don't know how to fight, step out of range. Hey, you want to go in the crate? You want to go to jail? Better be good. He's looking at me, staring at me like, hey. He's in his mood, which cats get into sometimes. Sid's not getting any because he has no balls. But anyway, so the foreigner kind of just stepped forward and said, I saw it. And then, of course, the Thai guy, who happened to be allegedly drunk, started mouthing off and screaming at him, saying, bad words. He's using the F word. He's saying things in Thai. And then he smacked the foreigner, who was a big guy. That doesn't always mean much, but he was a big guy. And so then he kind of walked away, and the Thai guy went after him and punched him in the face. This kind of stuff is uncalled for because, I'm older, but when I grew up, it was like, you don't let anybody get near you. You don't let anybody touch you. You don't let anybody get in your space and physically get aggressive with you. You just don't do it. And if somebody does it, you have to attack immediately. That's not always the wisest move here. Okay, Andy, so you'll be here soon, eh? This cat. I've told my wife the cat is going to end up living outside because I can't handle him jumping on my head when I'm sound asleep. Jumping off the walls, trying to scratch the walls, and all these other things. Anyway, you hear him? So that was another case where, there was a bit of violence, and it could have turned really nasty if one of them had a knife, a gun, Shut up! I'm going to stick him in the cage. You're going to jail. Come here. Come here. Fucking get in here, you little brat. You're going to learn, buddy. You're going to learn. There are rules in the house. Okay? You're stuck. Go to jail. All right. Sorry about that. Have to nip that in the bud. And then if you remember, if you know anything about Thailand in the news and what's happened, in fairly recent years, about 10 years ago, although that's not so recent, but, it depends on, it's all relative. In August of 2013, a Thai taxi driver killed an American with a samurai sword. And the motive was a dispute over the fare, and the fare amount was about $1.60. That driver is now in prison awaiting execution. You see, you talk about overkill. I mean, what kind of an idiot does that? Somebody who's mental, who just snaps. And I think that in the case of taxi drivers, some of them are just bitter. They hate their lives. They hate everything they're doing. And they're bitter against, you get some foreigner comes in and he's having the time of his life on a holiday or whatever it might be, and then they go off. And so sometimes it's better to pay up. I mean, you're talking about $1. I mean, listen, I don't like giving away money. I'm not cheap, but I am fairly intelligent about how I spend my money. I'm fairly frugal. and there is a difference between frugal and cheap. I don't particularly like, giving away extra. But if some guy tells me it's 100 baht and I know the price is 80, and what I'll say is, "Oh, is that the Thai price?" And they'll go, "Oh, same. It's the same." I go, "Well, I just paid the guy 80 baht yesterday for the same." Oh, okay, my friend, 80 baht. Sometimes they'll go, "No, no, no," and I go, "Okay, here, take it," because it's not worth fighting over 20 baht, because one way or the other you're going to lose. Now, in another case that did not involve a taxi, which, not everything that's dangerous in Thailand has to do with a taxi. So let's get that clear. And some of these things, they can happen anywhere. They're not necessarily, they don't necessarily only happen in Thailand. So, but in another case, this was just, I talked about this the other day, about the TikToker who posted how he went to Soy Cowboy. He met 3 women, which he never did say. He went into a bar. He paid their bar fines or anything like that. He never said anything like that. But he said he met 3 women and he took them out to dinner. When they finished eating, they demanded 15,000 baht. Now that right there, first of all, if I was single and I was asked, I don't know why you would ask 3 women out unless you had some motive. Like, you wanted all 4 of you to get together later in the night somewhere. But he ended up paying them 12,000 baht, and supposedly there was a tourist cop there. Now, a tourist cop is not really a cop. He doesn't like being in jail, and that's just too bad. Good morning, Gennaro. Good morning. And the tourist cop actually told him, "Oh, maybe you should just pay this." Ridiculous. Okay? First, it's his fault. Okay? It's his fault because if you are taking 3 women out that you don't know, and you found them, whether they're in a bar or hanging out around Soy Cowboy, you need to go in assuming that they're on the game, that they are ladies of the evening, women who sell their bodies, okay, for fun. And this kind of thing, yeah, I mean, I would have, especially if you have I know a lot of people over the years who have said, "Oh, well, let's go out to dinner first." Or the girl's like, "I'm really hungry." Usually you take them you take them to a street stall. I mean, if you're going to do something like, if they're really hungry, you go, "Yeah, we stop over there, we get some quitio or something like that." Right? I remember when I first came over here, I was hungry myself. And I had some girl with me. And I said, "Let's go out to eat." And I took her, and I've told this story before to some people, but I took her to the Landmark down below. You go down the stairs, and I forget the name of the place, but anyway, it was a fairly nice place. This girl she didn't know how to use her silverware. She was, what do I do? What should I? And she was like, "I just want some something." And I realized then, what am I doing? You better to keep things as a Thai would do, which is maybe they would say, "Okay, get yourself a plate of noodles or something, or some rice or whatever it might be." But anyway, he made the mistake of taking someone who, as soon as you take them, they're on the clock. That was his mistake. Now, that said, he bought them dinner, and if there's a cop there, he probably could have got out of it very easily. "I'm going to get a taxi." The girls could scream and yell all they want. "Oh, well, bye. You got your free dinner. That's all I promised you." If you really needed to, then that's it. Yeah, I mean, that's something that most guys, they know, but some guys don't know this. It's like if you say, "Oh, do you want to go to a movie with me?" Okay. Unless they say, "Don't worry about the money." Unless they go with you and they don't expect to be paid. I'm talking about women on the game. I'm not talking about your average everyday office girl, accountant, bookkeeper, lawyer, whatever it might be, doctor, nurse. Because then if they say something, you go, hey, I didn't think you were like that, so no, I'm not. It's very easy to get out of it. But if you're down there in that area, it's kind of like, well, why are you here? Most people know. So anyway, that could have ended up very, very nasty. That could have been a much nastier situation. However, if there was a tourist cop there, you would think that the tourist cop would be like, hey, girls, if you touch this guy, you're going to have a problem. We're going to have a problem. And that would be his duty, whether he's a tourist cop or just a cop, a tourist cop assistant, rather. Because they have the authority to help the police, but they are not the police. Okay? So, some of these are very simple, and some of them you might not think about. But like using a taxi that actually is licensed, or that is not sitting in front of a hotel. I don't care how much they boss, hey, why, hey, look me, hey, why you not talk me? Oh, doesn't matter. This is what really pisses me off, is that the taxi drivers and also the touts, they work that area all the time. They expect you to respond. They think that you owe them a response. You don't. Just keep walking. And if they do anything to you, then it's on them. Then you have to deal with it in whatever way you need to deal with. But just getting a taxi that's actually a taxi and not paying a set fee. If a taxi is sitting outside of, say, Patpong, outside of your hotel, wherever it might be, don't take them. And sometimes it means you got to walk out to the street, and it might take an extra 10 minutes, and you might be sweaty, but guess what? That's what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. You don't pay a set fare unless there is something agreed upon in the beginning, and it's because you're going to a faraway place, or you're going to Pattaya from the airport or something like that. Then you got to do that. Otherwise, you can get around that just by using Grab or whatever. Bolt, InDriver. So, that's something that you need to remember when you're dealing with the taxis. And if you have a dispute, you can write down or take a photo. What I do sometimes is if I sense any trouble, I turn the volume down on my phone. I've done this numerous times over the years. I turn the volume down on my phone, and I take a picture of the tag that is on the door of the taxi. And if at all possible, I try to take a picture of the ID plate that's in the front left of the vehicle, just before the window. That way, you have their information. If they kick off and they start doing something to you, just go, okay, I pay, and then you report them. You can report them to the police. You can report them to the Department of Land and Transport. And I got a message 2 days ago from the Department of Land and Transport saying that one of the guys who I reported, which there were 2 people I reported in about the last 6 months. One guy I reported because he didn't go the way that I asked him to go, and he just was being difficult about it. I said, listen, I know where I'm going. I want you to go this way. There was a reason why. But he didn't want to do that. And I just went, well, then let me out. No, it's okay. I said, no, I want you to go the way that I'm. He was just difficult. The other one, I forget what he did. But so they just responded and told me he's been reprimanded. He's got points on his account now. And one more and he's done. And this was in Thai, which they need to really revamp that. But for whatever reason, they haven't done it yet. And I suspect, whenever the image of Thailand comes into question, that's when they act. It's not necessarily because somebody did something wrong. Oh, he shouldn't have done that to the foreigner. He shouldn't have smacked the foreigner. Of course he shouldn't have. So what are you going to do about it, and what are you going to do to prevent it? Making him pay 500 baht is not going to prevent it from happening again. It's just not. Something else you can do, number 2, and this is pretty easy, but for some people it's not, especially when they get drunk and stupid. Respect the culture, respect the customs, the traditions, the dress codes. Uh, and if at all possible, don't talk politics, because, especially if you're a tourist, because it's a sure way to get in trouble. And I don't know if any of you, I'm sure you have, if you've been here more than a few times. But if they ask, oh, how you like Thailand? You like Thailand? I think you love Thailand. You can either just go, yes, yeah. You can just go, And if you're like me, you go, yeah, I like it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't be here. I don't have to say, well, there are, there's a long list of things I don't like. But there's also a longer list of things that I do like. So, you don't need to go, man, this place sucks. And I've heard I've heard people firsthand sitting in the vehicle with me, talking to them in broken English. They didn't speak Thai. They were just visiting. And they were like, well, I don't know. What about this? What about that? And the guy was kind of like, this particular driver tried to be decent about things, but it could have very quickly changed. And, so that's why I say you don't want to talk politics. You don't want to say bad things. You got to respect the culture. Something else, and this goes for, really it's everywhere, but especially in Southeast Asia, don't raise your voice. You don't need to raise your voice. It doesn't matter where you are, taxi, song tao, whatever it might be. You don't need to raise your voice. Here, you keep it mellow. You keep it calm. You don't escalate. Because once you do, then you are playing into their hand, because especially if you get aggressive. You don't want to do that. And I'm sure most of you have heard about, some of the stories about you jump one, then all of a sudden 10 are going to come out. You get into a fight with one, then people are going to come out and assist them. And I can tell you, that's never happened to me. I don't generally get aggressive with the Thais. But there was a case, and I've told this story before, where the guy was drunk and he was driving the motorcycle. I got on the back of the motorcycle and I go, has this guy been drinking? And then before we know it, we're down the road, and he's driving and he's kind of erratic in his driving. And I thought, this is not good. I'm going to die. I mean, it reminded me of the guy that when I walked across Thailand, there was this guy who said, oh, I'll give you a ride. And he ran out of gas, and we cruised down the hill. And then I realized this guy is inebriated. I was surprised he could hold the bike up. But that guy was very mellow and happy, and he didn't cause any problems. The driver, I asked him, are you drunk? And he got pissed off, because I could smell it on him. He got pissed off. And I said, well, I really don't care if you're pissed off. You need to stop, because I don't want to go with you anymore. So I gave him his money. I gave him the money that was due to the point where he stopped. And I knew how much it was, because it's in this area and I've done it many times. He got irritated. I said, listen, here, I gave him the full fare. He's still pissed off. And then I thought, this guy's smashed. I don't know what he's going to do. And finally, I got pissed. I'm trying to walk away. He's like driving behind me at the motorcycle. And he gets off of the motorcycle, takes his helmet off. And I did not want to fight. And he was an older guy. He was not much older than me, but he looked a lot older. And now the guy is like, he's very nice to me. I see him all the time. He's always waving at me and stuff. But he was smashed, and he knew it. And he was mouthing off to me. And I said, listen, we don't need this. This is not a problem. Let me go. I paid your money. Shut up and get away from me. And he, kind of like contemplated, do I need to go after this guy? And I said, don't make a mistake. Because I got pissed and I was ready to crack him. So he gets on the bike and he leaves. But just then, two other motorcycle drivers who were sitting at a bus stop waiting for customers, which, they use that sometimes as their stop. They come up to me, what's the problem? And they kind of had an attitude. And then I said, no, he's drunk. He's too drunk. He can't drive. And then they went, oh. They kind of went, and I spoke in Thai. So then that was it. End of it. I stopped. A Thai guy tried to hit on my girlfriend's brother with a beer bottle on the head in Royette. I threw him onto the street. No Thai helped him. They saw he was being an ass. Yeah, I will say this. A lot of times, if the guy's being an asshole, nobody's going to help him. But if it's a situation where there is no context to it, and people just think you're beating up on some Thai guy. What I would say is, when I first came here, I had this situation. I was with this girl. I mean, this is 28, 29 years ago. I was with some girl in a taxi. And the guy was mouthing off to her. He was really trying to degrade her. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is the taxi driver trying, which, excuse me, but, a smart taxi driver can make some decent money in Bangkok. They can make a decent living. I've got taxi drivers that I know who live in this village, and they have nice houses, and they're decent people because they work hard, they're smart, they don't treat their customers like shit. They were talking down to the girl, and I go, hey, why are you saying these things? Shut up, Like I said, my tong pud, like you don't need to speak. You don't need to speak about this. Just keep your opinions to yourself. Nobody cares about your opinion. So finally he stopped, and she's yelling at him. He gets out, and he goes after her. So I punched him in the face. Boom, he's out. She goes, this guy said he works part-time as a police. We better go. I said, okay, good idea. Let's go. Not the brightest move on my part, but, sometimes it seems to me that a lot of times it's the people in tourist areas. It's a very small percentage. Most of the Thais, I would say, are very nice, very polite, very kind, blah, blah, blah. I still believe that Thai people are some of the nicest in the world. But you get some of these who are jaded, some of these who are pissed off about whatever. Maybe they had a fight with their wife. Maybe their wife screwed around on them. They don't know what they're going to do. You never know. It's not your business, though. You don't have to know. And so these kind of things happen. But you don't need to raise your voice. In fact, I didn't raise my voice to the guy. I never raised my voice to him. But I didn't like what he was saying and how he was getting aggressive with the girl. And I wasn't trying to be some Captain Sabaho, some knight in white shining armor, or white knight in shining armor. I wasn't trying to be any of that. But, when he got aggressive, I was like, man, what the, like he thinks it's okay. It's not okay. All right? It's not okay for other people, I don't care where you are, to be putting their hands on you. Or for you to be putting your hands on them. You just don't do it. You don't get in their face. You don't put your hands up. There's absolutely no reason for it. If you put your hands on somebody, you better be prepared to fight. If you get in somebody's face and you start mouthing off, you better be prepared for a headbutt. Okay, so all this violence aside, something else that people, I know a couple people who think about this, but a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to try the Thai food. They go to some little shop house, and then the next thing you know, they're sitting on the toilet for the next, did your date reward? Did. That was a nice evening, actually, afterwards. You might end up stapled to the toilet for the duration of your trip. I know many people who this has happened to. I don't know anybody who died or anything like that, but I do know a couple people who had to pay visits to the hospital, which, there you go. A lot of people are going to have to pay. If you go, sometimes you're going to have to pay. Even if you got insurance, you're going to have to pay. And so the easiest way to get around something like this is to stick to places that are very busy and look very clean. And, that's not a guarantee, but generally, if people are going there all the time, it's because the food is good. And they don't see rats everywhere or something like that. And I've been in a couple of restaurants and I've seen rats in the United States and here. And those places are not the kind of places I want to go. My wife and I went out to a little restaurant on Ramkhamhaeng Road once, and we poured the water and a cockroach came out. And we were like, that's it, we're out of here. Time to go. Okay, so as I said, something else, do not escalate, do not get physical. And if you do, you better be prepared. But just because someone's not going to pay you a little something, or just because someone doesn't agree with what you're saying, and I'm referring to ties, doesn't necessarily mean you need to get all hot and bothered about it. And I mean, I can't say that I've adhered to this all the time, but I have learned over the years that it's better, even if you're pissed off, you keep it in check. And the very fact that you're not getting pissed off generally will, especially if you're somewhere like in a mall or you're buying something or something like that, the people will recognize that there's a problem, we need to take care of this, but at least you're keeping it in check. And I know several guys who have gotten ticked off, and then they ended up, like the girl who was there that they were dealing with, they ended up going out with the girl. Hey, Johnny. Here's Johnny. How you doing? I got a bacterial infection at the end of my last trip. It lasted for a week. I wasn't used to Thai food for every meal. 2QA roach burgers, yes. I see this little, I got to do a video on it, but I see this little Instagram short from this guy who says, here's a sample budget for Bangkok or for Thailand, life in Thailand. And it was 14,700 baht. Now, I've seen it several times. It's an older post. And finally, I get irritated that I saw it again. And there's a lot of guys, oh, thanks so much. And I'm like, listen, this is ridiculous. It's rubbish. The guy's talking about, oh, you can eat at 7-Eleven one meal a day. You can eat a Thai meal at one day. First of all, at 7-Eleven, most of their food is garbage. They have hard-boiled eggs, they have milk, they have protein drinks, they have a little bit of fruit, and they have coffee. Other than that, and maybe, you want to get your little drink, you want to get you want to get some chocolate drink, or you want to get an iced tea or something. Okay, they have all that stuff. But other than that, most of it's junk. It's junk food. You're not going to want to eat there every day. And, most people who eat at 7-Eleven every day are not the healthiest people. I mean, there's so many preservatives in their food, and especially their frozen food, that it's just ridiculous, Oh, well, that's good to hear. Good to hear. Long time no see. You coming back here anytime soon? Before I go any further, please let me know if you like this video. Click thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Go to my website, like I said, please, AnAmericanInBangkok.com. Get one of my books. They call me Farang, or ask me anything. Go to my website and check out the merch. Just go to the shop. You can get a shirt or hat or whatever. Mug. Lots to choose from. Oh, okay. Cool. Cool, Johnny. And what else was I going to say? Check the description down below. There's all kinds of ways that you can help the channel and myself, in addition to just watching. I do have some more Sankaburi videos coming up. I have the video of the woman who went blind, the Burmese woman, a very interesting lady. And next week, I'm going to put the link to the PBS videos, but I finally will be getting, his name is Mark Frerichs, and he's the guy who was captured by the Taliban. He had lived in Afghanistan working as a civilian contractor, and he got captured by the Taliban. He was held for 2.5 years, and one of his dreams is and was to live in Thailand. He loves Thailand. He's had Thai girlfriends, and so he's got an article coming out. I want to get this right here. I think it's on Thursday. In the New York Magazine on March 8th. So what would that be? 5, 6, 7, 8. Wednesday. Okay, he's going to be the subject of this big article. And he's, like I said, he was on PBS. I'm going to put those links down below in the description, but I will have him at some point in the next 7 to 10 days. We'll be doing an interview together. So that should be interesting on a number of levels. And he's an interesting guy. He's a fun guy. And, So there you have it. And thank you for those who are watching and those who have contributed. I appreciate it. You guys are the ones who help take little trips like to Sangkhlaburi and to Vietnam and to wherever it is. And like I said, there was a very good chance I was going to go to Spain. My wife is bummed. I'm bummed. It's not going to happen just because the ticket price is ridiculous. It's like $2,000 now. And when we originally looked at it, it was about $1,200, and that would have been possible. But then they cut the length of the trip down, and it went from like 7 days, where maybe we could stretch it out to 10, down to really what amounts to is 4 nights, and it's just not worth it. However, we will still be going to the United States, and all in all, the trip's going to be just under about 3 weeks. But we're going to go to the United States, and we're going to go to Ecuador, finally. And we have a good idea of the time, the time that we'll be there, which will be the end of May, beginning of June. We just have to finalize the dates and then get the tickets, and then we're on our way. So a lot of things will be happening. All right, let me continue here, because there's some other things that a lot of people just don't think about. I've said this before. Don't swear. Don't call somebody an asshole. Don't use the F word. And like I always say, all it takes is just a second. It only takes a second or two, and then things pop off. And here, you use the F word, and it can pop off very quickly. I've heard many stories of Thai guys going nuts because somebody said the F word, and it wasn't even directed at them. And this happened to me in Cambodia, where I needed a ride somewhere. Johnny, thank you very much. I appreciate that so much. Choke D to you. I tell you what happened. I was in Cambodia, which my buddy who lives there now is bugging me to go over there, and I've been thinking about it, and I can only do so many things, and I'm still busy with the kids and the house and the channel and trying to do other things. So it's not so simple. But I was in Cambodia, and I needed a ride somewhere, and there was a tuk-tuk driver, and he said, it's this and this and this, and it was like a certain amount, and I went, and I used the F word. It wasn't directed towards him. It was like, the guy's ripping me off. I knew he was. It was like, that'll be $5. And it wasn't that much, but I didn't want to pay it. It was like $1 fare. And I was like, man, And so I used the F word, but I wasn't using it at him, and he went nuts. And I had to tell him, hey, it's not you. I'm sorry. I said I'm sorry. And then that was it. It diffused the situation. But that can get you in a lot of trouble very, very quickly. And I will say that not everybody uses that kind of language. Now, this is something, if you don't know this already, then you probably shouldn't be traveling. But you got to be aware of your surroundings. And if you need to really keep an eye out for, is there any trouble brewing? I know it sounds stupid, but this is your best defense is a good offense. You're looking around, you keep your eyes open, and you see, there's something popping off over there. Do you really want to be around that? No, I'm going to leave. I got to get out of here. You got to trust your instincts. Go with your gut. And if you think something is going to kick off, you better be ready. Listen, I go to places, and whether it be a slum, whether it be someplace like Hong Kong during the protest, or in Thailand in the protest, and I'm always thinking, where can I go? Am I trapped here? If something happens, am I screwed? And if that answer is yes, then I got to get out of Dodge. Always know where the nearest toilet is. That's something else. And one thing that I don't have on my list here is, if you are using a toilet, make sure there's not a snake coming out of it. And I'm not talking about fecal matter. I'm talking about an actual snake. Make sure there's no snake in the toilet before you sit down. That is something you need to think about. Because some people might get bit, and it's happened to more than one person. Now, head-to-head confrontation in Southeast Asia is generally frowned upon, and it generally does not happen. In the United States, let's say that somebody wants to steal something from you, they might walk up with a gun or a knife and they might say, "Give me all your money." In Thailand, they might be standing behind a wall somewhere. You walk by, they slice open your bag, or they try to pickpocket you or something like that. It's a little more subtle. And in a place like Chatuchak, that they actually warn people about uh, thieves who slice open bags. So you need to be very careful. Good morning, Dallo. Long time no see. See, you get to Thailand and you forget all about me. I know how it is, man. Um, House sits on a foreign toilet. That's when we become the squatters. Well, I just used a squat toilet the other day. I'm going to post those photos pretty soon of the place where I stayed. And the lady was quite nice. She was a lovely lady. I mean, I go to places, and I was talking to Steve, my friend Steve, who travels a lot, and we agreed that generally when you go to places, it's the people that make the place. And between her and the woman Jean, who went blind, and between the people at the doghouse bar. You hear him crying? They made the place, and all the other, even the guy who was hitting me up for money, and I need gas, and okay, he was an innocent guy. He wasn't gonna hurt me. There was no animosity, and he probably needed that. Who knows? He really needed the money. And so the people make the place, but here things are a little more subtle, and you have to keep your eyes open. And some knucklehead who comes in, "Wow, I'm in Thailand, I can't believe it, oh, I finally made it, oh wow," and they got their head in the clouds. You might as well have your head up your ass, because you're not going to see things. You need to open up. And this is why sometimes, if you don't know a place, don't wear headphones. It makes sense if you think about it. Be alert. Okay, let's see here. If you are going to get into a physical situation, you need to do one of three things. You obviously, like I said just a few moments ago, you try to de-escalate it if at all possible, or you walk away or run away. Do whatever you got to do, or be prepared to fight your ass off. And most of the time, that's not necessary. Even here, where you hear about all these things going on, most of the time you don't have to do it. You'll do a lot better if you just don't fight. And one of the reasons, I forget, one of the reasons why the guy got killed by the driver with the samurai sword is because he kept accusing him of of the meter being rigged. Now, every once in a while, I'll go, "Listen, I got here in the same time as I always get here, and it's 8 baht or 7 baht or 9 baht more expensive than it normally would be. Why is that?" And I think to myself, this guy's, and you look at the taxi, and you look at the driver, and you can kind of tell, and I just go, I wouldn't put it past this guy to be rigging the meter. But again, for what amounts to about 25, 30 cents US, is it worth getting into a confrontation? And okay, maybe you knock the guy out, maybe you have a fight and you come out unscathed. Okay, fine. But do you really need to for that kind of money? Do you really want to hurt somebody for that? And more importantly, are you willing to die for that amount? Because some of these guys, you talk about a knucklehead, a chowderhead, whatever. These guys they're off their rocker. They can't handle someone confronting them. And some Thais are like that. If you dare to confront them, those are fighting words. If you dare to speak up against them, you are just but a lowly foreigner. You are not allowed to do this. So you have to be very careful. And, my mother told me this a long time ago. She said, whether you're right or wrong doesn't matter, because if you're dead, you're dead. You know, once you're dead, it doesn't matter if the guy goes to jail and he serves the life sentence or he gets executed. It doesn't matter because you're dead. You know, so you got to be careful. Something else, and this really applies more to the expats, but you don't borrow money here. It's not a wise move. You don't borrow money from some loan shark. You don't gamble. And you don't, and I've said this before, you don't get involved with illicit substances other than, say, some cannabis, which is no longer illicit here. And I got to tell you, yesterday, after going to see Patia Bob and Carlos, I had to go down towards where my kid works. And I'll tell you what, I'm walking around on Sukhumvit Road. There must have been 5 or 6 cannabis stores within a 1 block radius. And on oh, my stomach's growling. On my, on soy, I think it's soy 5, where you turn down to go to Foodland, Sukhumvit soy 5. Foodland's on the left. On the right, on the corner, there used to be a restaurant for a long time. Now, there is, I think it's, what's it called? It's like Weedland, or I forget what it is. But it's a huge cannabis store. And then there are little cannabis stores scattered up and down the street. I couldn't believe it. There must have been 5 or 10 little cannabis stores just in the Sukhumvit soy 3, soy 4, down to soy 5 area. And yeah, so there's no shortage of places. And I passed up one place, it's called the Weed Hub. And I was surprised because I go in, well, I didn't go in, but I went by. No, I didn't go in. I didn't indulge. But I looked, and there's all these people sitting in there, and they're smoking away, doing their thing. And then there's the little part where, you know, they buy whatever they want. But you don't want to get involved with anything stronger, just because if you get caught, you're in deep doo-doo. At the very least, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get out of it. At worst, you're going to end up doing a lot of time, and you don't want that, or worse. Now, something else, and you know, we talk about this as well, but unless you are confident you can cover a few $100,000 hospital bill, get yourself some travel insurance, or make sure that your medical insurance covers you in the country here. How many times have you heard, oh, they didn't have insurance, or their insurance didn't cover them? If you're on a motorcycle, first of all, you better make sure that your insurance covers you. Second of all, wear a helmet. And the reason for wearing a helmet is because if you have a helmet on, the insurance is more apt to pay. If you're going to rent a motorbike, make sure that you have a license. And many of the taxi drivers and motorbike drivers are unlicensed. And sometimes they get into a beef with some foreigner, and the only thing they get charged with is driving without a license, driving without insurance and stuff like that. And so it pays, really, if you're going to rent a bike or something like that, or even if you're going to get a bike, get on a bike, you know, if you can wear a helmet, wear it, because, you know, you're better off. And the insurance, which travel insurance is not all that expensive, especially when you are take into consideration the overall cost of your trip. You'll spend $3,000 on a trip to go and come back and have a great time, but you won't spend $50 to get insurance. Shut up, Sid. Enough. You know what? I'm going to let him outside, because that way I don't have to listen to him. And I don't want to keep him in there for too long. So I think insurance is something that's very important, and it's it's something that people, they underestimate the need for it. Now, again, if you are you have plenty of money, then you probably don't have to worry about it, because even these guys, you know, I talked about the guy who was 23 years old the other day. He fell off of a balcony. I don't know exactly the circumstances, whether he was drunk or whatever. You have to get insurance when you rent the motorbike a lot of times here, or if you buy a motorbike here, you're going to need insurance. I mean, that's the bottom line. You need to get the insurance. You need to have the insurance just in case, for the what if. I don't know if this guy was drunk and he fell off and that's why his insurance wouldn't cover him. I don't know. I don't know the whole story. That the media didn't say that. So you need to make sure. That's another thing is, drugs and alcohol. To me, it seems like most of the harsh situations that foreigners find themselves in can be alleviated simply by not having quite so many drinks. That alone would help. But and Gennaro, you don't. I mean, if you really want, you get yourself a driver's license here. It's not all that difficult to do. My wife and Alex both have a driver's license. Now, I used to ride motorcycles all the time, and I don't ride now because if I was to hit the deck, I'd probably smack my hip, and who knows what would happen with that. But I would like to get one. I love riding them, and they're very convenient. But then I think about it, and I go, hey, you know what? I can get a taxi or, can get on a boat or something and get everywhere I need to go, and most of the time, it's like having a chauffeur. Something else that people don't really think about is the elements. One of the elements, I don't know if anybody knows this, but Thailand is ranked 22nd in the world for number of drowning deaths. Let him out. All right, you're going out, okay? You're going out, but you need to shut up. You cry too much, buddy. You're too much of a pain in the ass. Come on, go. Sid, the royal pain in the arse. I have a motorcycle license here. Driver's license is not difficult at all. No, my wife and daughter have driver's licenses. Don't mean they can really drive. Well, that's another thing. My wife and Alex both went to driving school, and I'll be honest, I drove with Alex once. I was in the back seat, and I was not, I've talked about it before, but I was not a happy camper. I did not feel safe. I was sitting in the back shaking because I was so scared that he was going to have an accident. And maybe this is one of the reasons why there are so many accidents and so many road rage incidents and things like that. But despite the amount of water, many Thais never learned to swim. Yeah, that was one of the first things we did with the kids is get them swimming lessons, and taught them ourselves. And but let me go on here. We got more. Guess what? Get your vaccinations. And I'm not talking about the China thing. I'm talking about consider getting vaccinated against hepatitis A and B, typhoid, and Japanese encephalitis. Which brings me to the next point, which is, Thailand is a big haven for mosquitoes. There are literally millions and millions and millions, billions of mosquitoes. They don't generally bother me, although once in a great while, I'll get bit. But so I think if you're in an area that is known for having a high mosquito population, you better use a net, and you better use some DEET or something like that. Malaria and dengue fever deaths are now on the decrease, which is good. But a bout with either of these can cut your holiday short if you're a tourist, and in general make your life quite miserable. I've had malaria and dengue fever, and I can say that both suck, and the dengue fever when my kids had it, I was really worried because I was thinking, they were shut down completely for about 3 days, where they didn't do anything but just sleep, and it wasn't the normal sleep, like they come home from school, come home from work, and they're sleeping, and they get up and walk around and go take a leak, and then they eat something, and then they go back to sleep. They're watching a movie, they fall asleep. No, it's not like that. They just slept for hours and hours and hours. And like I said, I mean, there's not really much you can do aside from wearing some DEET on you, or some kind of mosquito repellent, some good mosquito repellent. And if you're out in some little shack or some little bungalow, and there's a lot of mosquitoes, then you better use the net. And I mean, I've been in quite a few places where they had nets, and they're not fun. It's not fun climbing in and out of bed when you got the net, but it's not all that difficult to do, and you just get over it. All right, and then we've talked about the motorcycle thing, and but you don't want to get onto a motorcycle if you don't know how to drive it. This is not the place to learn how to ride a motorcycle. If you're coming in from overseas and you're some, say, 40-year-old guy, and you're like, oh, I want to learn how to ride a motorcycle. Okay, then go take a class. Don't do on-the-job training here, because it might end up killing you. And if you're down in like Phuket, where they have all the windy roads, or you're down on the western portion of, or you're up on the western portion of Thailand, like Kanchanaburi, Sangkaburi, Masot, those kind of places, Nan, Pai, you're up in that region, you start going up towards Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai, it's not a good idea to just start learning how to ride a motorcycle, because those windy roads kill a lot of people, Thais included, and they probably know how to ride a motorcycle a lot better than you do. So, wear a helmet if you're on a bike. And even driving in general is dangerous, which Thailand has one of the worst road accident records in all the world. They were at one time the worst place to drive. Now I think they're like number 3 or something like that. All right, now here's something else. Be on the lookout for street dogs, monkeys, snakes, and, especially if you're Patia Bob, who has a bad track record with them, spiders. Be very careful when you are interacting with these animals, because they are unpredictable. Hey, soy cowboy, how you doing? Pays to be careful. Like I said, if you're going to go onto a toilet, you go onto a toilet, and especially if you're out in the country, but even here in the city, you got to keep an eye out for snakes in the toilet. And I'm not talking about, the human kind. I'm talking about actual snakes. Usually it's a python, but, there is a guy who I sent a message to. I have a video of a green snake eating a taka, which is a lizard, and I wanted to know what kind of snake it was. I wanted to be sure, and this guy knows a lot about snakes, and so he wrote me back. He said it is poisonous, but it is a mildly venomous snake, and it probably would not hurt you more than maybe giving you some skin irritation or something like that. But he had a video up where he went into a house, and I don't know where the location was. I don't remember. It's a long time ago. But he was told by the owner, oh, there's a snake in my bedroom. So he catches the snake. It's a big cobra. He's looking around for other snakes. He lifts up the bed, and under the bed, there's a nest of, what are they called? Is that what they're called? A nest of baby cobras under their bed. It was like 30-something snakes, and he had to catch them all. And he really went to town on this place trying to find these snakes, but it happens all the time. I mean, there's snakes all the time you hear about. I mean, it's not like every day it doesn't happen, but every so often you, no, I'm just glad to see you. You do have to be careful. And the monkeys, don't underestimate the monkeys. I hate those little things. When we went to Kaosok, it was difficult going to our bungalow because the monkeys were everywhere. And I didn't trust them. And we were in our room at one point, and we went out on the balcony. We're sitting on the balcony. My wife puts out, I don't know why, she had 100 baht sitting out, and she had her laptop out, and, a drink, and I had a drink out there, like a bottle of water or something. And then I went inside, and she followed, came back inside. And then all of a sudden we look, and there's this monkey plastered, and I have a photo of it. I posted this before. The monkey is planted himself up against the window, and it's got its face bearing its fangs. And we were like, oh, make sure that door is locked. And we just waited, and it eventually jumped up on the table, grabbed 100 baht, and ran off. But, my kid was going up, I think it was Hua Hin. There's a temple, you go up this hill, and he's got a bottle of water in his pocket, and the monkey ran up and grabbed the bottle of water and scared him, and it was such a steep hill that, if you fall over the side, that's it, you're done. It scared the hell out of him. And then, down in Suratani, I've been to the temple where they have all these monkeys. They weren't there the last time. I don't know what happened to them. Maybe, because of the virus, they ran away. They couldn't get any food. But there were literally hundreds of them, and some of them were like a large dog. They were huge. And they are nasty. They're not little friendly, cuddly creatures. I call them tree rats. I don't like them. But you need to be careful of them. And also, you need to be careful of the street dogs. Because Thais don't always take care of the dogs very well. They get pissed off. The dog does something, shits on the bed or something, and then they throw him out. He's out on the street. He's starving. He's hungry. He joins up with some other dogs, and, the next thing you know, he's like a feral dog. So you got to be careful. Like I said, I told you about the story where I was doing the walk. And I was out at like 3:30 in the morning. It's drizzling. The ground's all wet, and I hear these big dogs. And I thought, oh, well, the fence is shut. Well, the fence was shut on the side that I was looking at. But down the way, it wasn't shut. It was open. And the dogs ran out and tried to attack me. And I literally was kicking them. I was kicking at them, trying to kick them, screaming at them. I didn't have a stick, which I had for the remainder of the time that I was walking on that trip. And I got lucky because I didn't fall. If I had fallen, that would have been it. They were big, strong dogs, and that would have been the end of it. And then, walking around the neighborhood even, not so much in this village. But I've been on a couple walks where the dogs went after me, and it was it wasn't pleasant. So you do have to be careful of the street dogs. Now, something else. And, if you're a man, I don't know about the women, if they got to worry about the men here. I'm sure they do. I'm talking about, since the majority of people watching are men, like 95% are men, we're going to talk about women. Now, it could be, listen, if you go on the same, if you play on the same team, so to speak, then you got to watch those people too. But a street dog can also mean like a street prostitute. And it used to be in the old days, and I'm talking about 30 years ago, 40 years ago, one of the tricks of the women who were on the street is that they would set some kind of deal up with the guy. The guy would go with them. And no, this never happened to me, but I do know people it did happen to. They would put some kind of a drug on their breast, and it was like a liquid that just dried. And then the man starts, doing his thing. He goes on he starts kissing their breasts and whatever. He gets a mouthful of the stuff. I don't know if there was a taste to it or not. I don't know how that worked. Maybe they put a little strawberry on there or something just to make it taste good, so he didn't know. I don't know. But the guy would fall asleep. The guy falls asleep. She takes off with whatever she can get. Now, this is one of the reasons why hotels ask for a woman's ID card when she comes in with what is perceived as a customer. So, the moral of that is don't take some chick who's on the street. I don't care if they're still doing this or not. Generally, they tend to be less affluent, we'll say. And there is no recourse, because if you go to a bar and you meet a woman in, let's say in the G spot or Big Dogs or something like that, you meet a girl there. Well, the bar knows who they are. Now, if you're in some place like Terme, or you're in some disco / club, and they're freelancing, that's a different story. But if you're going into a place like a little go-go or a beer bar, and you say, oh, I want to take this girl out. You take the girl out. She turns out to be a major pain, and she threatens you. She pulls a razor, blah, 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 and you get out. Let's say, assuming you get out alive. You have some recourse and that you can go back to the bar. And you can always go to the police. Generally now, especially, but even back in the day, the police, I don't care what anybody says. When it comes to the interaction between a man and a woman, they will try to de-escalate and minimize the problem to the point where you both leave and that's the end of it and there's nothing done. But if need be, they'd rather throw the girl in jail than you. Now, if you deserve to be thrown in jail, that's a different story. But if you're just minding your business and you think you've got some girl that's going to be good and she creates a major problem, don't be scared to call the police, tourist police, whatever. Especially if you're visiting. There's a big difference between a tourist and somebody who's an expat, but we already know that. So, but I'm curious to know about some of you guys' experiences. The bar girls have a manager who you can take care of problems. Freelance will get you skin. Yeah. And the manager is also known as the mama-san. And generally, the mama-san becomes the mama-san because she knows how to keep the girls in line. And the smart ones, they know that if a girl is acting up, if she's causing problems, it's just going to be a problem for the bar, and they don't want that because then that reflects on them. Maybe the owner of the bar is like, well, you know what? I need somebody who can handle these girls. You're out. And they don't want that. Plus, the mama-sans have experience. They know when a guy is BSing, when the girl is BSing, So those are some of the dangers. The other danger that, this is more, this is not really something that, this could happen anywhere. And we're talking about, you get into some relationship with some girl, the girl ends up taking everything you got, and instead of learning from it and trying to figure out a solution to your immediate problem, which may be, I have no money, I don't know what I'm going to do, you decide to become a high flyer. And that happens, a fair amount here. How many times have you heard about so-and-so, falls from the 34th floor of this hotel, or he jumped, or whatever it might be. And so it's not just the street girls, but it's women in general with guys, because guys tend to be extreme. Some guys, they come over here and they think this is going to change their world, and they're going to have their dream girl, and everything's going to work out fine, and then they don't. Things don't work out, and the next thing you know, they're on the ledge going, I can't take it anymore. I can't believe she did this to me. Yeah, well, guess what? Move on to the next one. There's another one down the corner. And if you really what used to be the big joke, and I started using it, is next. It was a joke. It was like some girl dumps you, next. Go on to the next one. There's plenty of them. You know, and if they're not like the right one, the perfect one, they're not your dream girl, then do your thing with them, have your fun, you know, do it until you all of a sudden you go, what was that girl's name that broke my heart? I don't even remember anymore. That's what you do. I travel the wife, so it's food, culture, and temples. Nothing of the women, in Thailand. Well, I mean, that's how it is for me now. And I'm glad. I don't miss those kind of problems. Ugh. Talk about the dangers of gay guys for Gennaro. Gennaro. Listen, I haven't talked to him now in about a week. You know, we send messages back and forth every once in a while, but he's busy, you know, with Steve, or he's also known as Tao, the guy who came on once during the stream. Some of you may remember him, and also he was in, I think it was my last video about Vietnam, which I still have another one that needs to go up. You know, I was never a cross-pollinator, buddy. I like the smell of women. I like the smell and feel and look of women, and I don't mean artificial ones. And that's another thing that, you know, there used to be a time when I would be, well, he's a busy man, you know. I mean, he is busy, and he's got his boyfriend there, so he's, you know, he'll come on. I mean, you know, he's willing to come on. If I can get him to technologically sound enough for him to come on. Now I forget what I was going to say. There was that story he shared a long time. I don't know. I don't know the story you're talking about. But you know, there used to be a time when I'd be, and this is before I got married and, you know, settled down and all this. And I lived down in the Sukhumvit area, and I would go walking around. I'd go to a bar. I'd, you know, sit around, talk to people, do whatever I did. And sometimes late at night, I'd be walking from, say, Terme back home to Soi 1, Sukhumvit Soi 1. And there used to be a handful of ladyboys, 3 or 4, that always stood on the corner of Soi 7, Sukhumvit Soi 7. Oh, thanks for reminding me, Carlos. God. But there used to be a bunch of them, and they were the ones you always had to watch out for. If there were just some Thai girls sitting around, they're not going to bother you. But what the ladyboys would do is they would one of them would come out and start to talk to you. This was their MO. One of them would come out and start to talk to you. Then another one would come up from the side and start to talk to you. Then another one would try to walk behind you and pick your pocket. So anytime they would come anywhere near me, and I know, you know, some of you might not believe this, but anytime that they would come close to me, I would tell them in not a very nice manner to get away from me. And, you know, I was ready to crack one if they got too close. I was always ready for that, because I was like, hey, you know, if I gotta brawl with all 3 of them to save, because my money meant something to me, and it still does. And I just thought, you know, and now I think, well, that wasn't the wisest way to think. It's not always the wisest way to think, because some of them are carrying razor blades and, you know, X-Acto knives and stuff like that. Listen, I don't miss that whole scene at all. I don't miss it. And, you know, I talked about how I went down and had burgers at that bar in Sankaburi, and then all these younger people started coming in. And, you know, all I felt when I was in that bar, I mean, I felt they were very nice to me, especially the owner. They're very nice. They're friendly. I had a conversation with the girl who was the replacement veterinarian. She was very nice. And, I said a few words to the other people. But the only thing it did was make me feel old and make me feel like I didn't belong there and I didn't want to be there. Because let's face it, now in this place, it was so mellow. I mean, it didn't look like anything was going to happen there. Nobody's going to, get so drunk that they start trying to beat people up or they tear up the bar or something like that. But generally, when you go into a bar, you have to think, hey, there's going to be drunk people here, and sometimes those drunk people are going to be nasty. And you need to, you need to watch yourself. So I don't want any problems. And I don't drink. So why am I going to go there? I don't drink. I don't carouse now. So why do I go? Why would I go there? So that's something else. Is that when you go to a bar or a club, you got to remember that sometimes the most dangerous thing in Thailand is the other foreigners. Because for a long time, the only problem that I really had with anyone in Thailand was foreigners. And I talked about the time when I got arrested at Therme. It was at Therme. There used to be this big, heavy-set guy, and I'd see him all the time, say hello to him. And there was the one guy, he was from Denmark. I saw him in one place, and he bumped into me, and I thought, oh, well, that happens. But, there's always some asshole who he gets a few drinks in him, and then he's like, purposely bumping into you. I had an incident in Patong as well many years ago, and I got out of that one. I was pretty lucky, actually, because the foreigner who I hit didn't want to press charges because he knew why I hit him, which was he thought that I was going after some woman, and actually it wasn't a woman, it was a lady boy who had said something to me, and I said something back, and the lady boy came at me, and I cracked it. When I was in my 20s and early 30s, I was a little bit crazy, and I did some things that, listen, I did what I did. I'm not going to regret them or anything like that, but nowadays I wouldn't handle things the same way. I would just walk away. But this guy at Terme, I'd seen him a couple times, and I did hit him, and he didn't look very good, and my wife was all upset when she saw him because she thought I was going to go to jail forever because his face was just, it was, he had bruises all over his face, he had a fat lip, he had a chipped tooth, it wasn't good. And he had been drinking, and then he got in my face, and he was like, some spit got on me, and that was it. I was like, that's enough, I let this guy get in my face, and then some spittle got on me. But that also, I could have just walked away. Much better to walk away, because I ended up having to pay, bail amount. I think it was 30,000 baht. And I didn't get that money back for about a little more than a year because I had to go every single month and sign a paper saying I was still in Thailand, that I was still going to go forward. And then the guy didn't even show up. And the cops got reprimanded, and the judge was like, listen, this is self-defense. Why would you even waste my time with this? But the point is that sometimes there are going to be foreigners who are going to make problems, and it's better, first of all, it's better to let the Thais handle things, because if they're going to get in trouble, they're going to get in trouble. But a lot of the time, they know how to handle the situation. Maybe they've got their cousin Joe works next door. That's his nickname. Works next door, and he is a police officer. He works next door as the manager of a little club or something. He's a police officer. They just go and say, listen, this guy's being... And then the guy comes over and goes, hey, I'm police. You show, boom, that's it. End of situation. Or he makes a phone call, and the next thing you know, 4 cops come in. They grab the guy, and that's the end of the situation. So it's better to let them handle things. It's better not to get physically involved. And I think as you get older, I'm speaking for myself and for several older expats that I know and have come to know over the years, they just don't even want to hassle. The only reason that they would ever fight is if, like, they absolutely could not get out of it. So there's a few dangers and tips. Basically, let me see here. All right, Carlos, take it easy. Have fun. Have fun there in Bangkok. But in review, some of the dangers: alcohol and drugs, animals such as some of the dangers: alcohol and drugs, loan sharks. Don't be that stupid. Animals, speaking about mosquitoes, dogs, monkeys, snakes, spiders. It's too bad Patty Bob is not in here. He could talk about the yellow spiders that bit him. Food, which, if you're a little bit careful, that goes a long way. And also if you have a little bit of medicine that can kill any bacteria in your stomach. Balconies, falling, however that might be, whether you are pushed or you fall because you're inebriated or you just are taking a selfie. Oh, selfie, selfie. Oh, next thing you know, that's it. It's over. Depending on your preference, be careful of the women you interact with, and that really is. I think the cat just came back in. That's something to remember, because even the best of women, if you do the wrong thing, and I mean, like, they think they got something going with you and you cheat and they find out, they might get pissed off, and you never know, they might end up giving it to the duck. Snip, snip, or slice, give it to the duck. And in some cases, hey, if you're into this thing, it could be the man that you're with. Confrontations, always try to de-escalate. When it comes to the culture, be respectful. When it comes to the taxi drivers, understand something. You don't need to put up with any shit from them, but you don't need to push them. You can speak to them respectfully, and I do this on a regular basis. I'd say at least once or twice a month. There's some taxi driver who has an attitude, and I try to check it in the most soft way possible, so that I let him know, no, we're not doing it this way. We're not going to go that way. I don't want to go that way. I want to go my way. And if you have a problem with it, that's okay. I'll get out. I'll pay whatever the fare is right now, and I'll get myself another taxi. Anytime you're dealing with the prostitution areas, mind your P's and Q's, man. Don't get involved in gambling. I don't care if it is the little 5 baht, 10 baht, 1,000 baht a hand kind of thing. One thing that I didn't really talk about is heat stroke. You got to be careful of that, and that is why I didn't have a hat with me the other day, even though I got, 4 or 5 hats, and I had a good one that covered my neck. And that's why I bought this one the other day, even though it looks goofy. I look like Jethro. Because I was already sunburned, and I figure another day or two of this, and it's not going to be pretty. I'm going to be hurting. So I wore that hat, and it did help quite a bit. Electricity is a real risk. You do have to be careful, but for the most part, you're not going to have that problem. That doesn't happen all that often. Another big thing is make sure you get vaccinated for some of the things that I talked about, like Japanese encephalitis and whatever else is necessary. I'm not saying anything about the current virus, but the big thing that can really help, or should help at least alleviate, I'll say 50% of the problems, is make sure you got decent travel insurance. You have decent medical insurance. And I've learned that the hard way, and had to pay out well, it was 150,000 baht at the time. That was a long while back when I let my insurance lapse, and I was looking around, but I was doing, oh well, every month that goes by, I save that money, and I should have just jumped on something right then. So that's something else, but yeah, I think that's about it. What else here? Anything else? Don't get lost out in the jungle. I know that sounds stupid, but even walking across Thailand, when I did that walk, I got lost. Well, if you don't want to lose your phone, I always say, and this is real simple, exit the taxi, rear end first. Polluted beaches, well, aren't all the oceans polluted? When you think about it, if you think about it, they already have fish shit in there. How much fish shit is in the ocean? I'd like to know that. Jellyfish, that's a good one. That is a good one. Gennaro, you never cease to amaze me. And I'll tell you, my wife and I went to, what was it called? Saboya. Most people have never heard of it, unless they heard me talk about it. Saboya. Siboya. Now, I don't know what it's like now, but her and I went back in the, I don't know, we could have made Alex and Nicholas back then. I don't even remember, but we had our own little bungalow, and we were alone, man. And I mean, there was probably 20 people on the whole island. And we had a great time. However, when we went into the ocean, we went swimming, and after a short while, we were like, oh, we itch, we're like itchy, and it turned out that it had to do with some of the jellyfish in the water. We had gotten stung by something, and yeah, I mean, like angry elephants. Well, if you go near elephants, there's always that chance. If you go near any wild animal, you go and you want to pet the tiger, there's always a chance, and it's happened where the tiger might just slice your leg off, or bite your arm and rip your arm off. I mean, these things happen. What about crocodiles? I mean, go to the crocodile farm, which I don't think is open anymore. That was the site of 3 people committing suicide. They just jumped in the pit, which is, what a horrible way to go. What a stupid way to go. Honestly, I don't understand that. You gotta go. Why not do something a little less overstated, a little less dramatic? Yeah, that's why if you have some kind of a sting like that, you can piss on it. So there are some dangers here, but I think if you don't get too inebriated, and also it depends on what kind of a drunk you are. If you are an angry drunk, this is not the place for you. If you get totally blackout drunk and you are an angry drunk, this is not the place to go mouthing off. And there's video after video after video with foreigners who mouthed off. They were drunk. They mouthed off to Thais, and Thais either called the police or they got beat up. The Thais beat them up. So I think if you mind your P's and Q's, I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm going to give it a wild guess. Your chance of having a problem here is probably less than 1%, less than 0.5%. I'm talking about a problem as in it's going to cause significant hassle for you or death. You're going to get beat up, you're going to get thrown in jail, your whole trip is going to be worth nothing because you're stuck and, like you're in the hospital for the 2 weeks you're supposed to have left. That's what I mean. I think the chance of that happening is very slim. Now, I have talked to several people who they're like, oh, I got food poisoning and I was in the hospital, and And what are you going to do? That can happen anywhere. And, there are some people that don't eat any street food. But, like I was talking about the guy who was saying, oh, 14,700 baht and you can live cheap in Thailand. No, you can't live here. You're not going to live here on that. Now, if you had to do it for a month or two, short term, you could get by. But to live, truly live, costs more. And I don't even think $1,000 is really, you can do it, but you got to be smart with your money, and you got to include things long term, medical insurance, going to the dentist, getting your eyes checked, all kinds of visa fees, and then once in a while you may need to go somewhere, and or you may want to go somewhere, and that trip's going to cost you 5 or 10,000. So if you're getting by on 15,000 baht a month, probably not going to happen. The only caveat to that is if you have a large sum of money saved and you just want to be frugal or cheap, and you can always draw off of that and it's not going to hurt you, well then it doesn't matter what your expenses are. You got some house out in the Banok, you're not paying rent on it, you got 500 baht for electricity or something, you don't have cable, you don't have an internet box, you just use your phone or something like that. Yeah, you can get by for cheap, but it always pays to have a little bit of money so that if something comes up, you have that little bit of money. So anyway, that's the dangers. Those are the dangers. And, I think it's a bit of an adventure. It can be exciting to come to a new place, but for many people, it's a challenge. And that's half the fun of it, that it's a challenge. But if you follow the tips, you just basically, you stay mellow and you stay calm, that in itself will help you go a long way to staying safe and healthy. And if you're coming here as a tourist, basically you're coming as a tourist because you want the experience. So if you have a negative experience, don't make it even more negative. I don't care how much of a badass you are. You don't need to get into some scrap when the guy, cheats you out of 10 baht. You can laugh at him. You can just laugh. Laugh it off. So whether you are a new expat or you are planning to move here or you live here or whatever else, remembering some of these things will help you, and they should help you. So, Thailand is a very safe place for the most part. Safer than the U.S., I would say. Although, if you mouth off, if you do something stupid like borrow, I need 20,000 baht, and you borrow it from somebody who's a loan shark, or, they expect you're going to have to pay 10% a month or something like that, if you or a week or whatever it is, these are not very intelligent moves. You need to be a little bit smart. If you're going to come here and live and prosper, I always say I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not always the brightest guy, but I mind my P's and Q's, and I'm sharp enough to have been able to live here without many problems for almost 30 years. So that should say something. And I stand by that. If you just are decent to people, and even if somebody told me something, Sammy, he said, I don't care about the trolls. I want to turn them around to being my friend or to liking me. Now, I don't care if they like me. I don't really care about that. But when you have somebody and you think, oh, this guy's he's difficult. If you try to do your best to solving whatever the situation is to where it's win-win for both of you, then at the very least you're like, listen, I did my best. The guy wants to be a jerk, that's on him. Some people just want to be difficult for the sake of being difficult. And it doesn't matter if it's Thailand or the US or Australia or wherever it is, Ecuador. I have my reservations about Ecuador as well. I have never been there. It's a new place. And to go there with my family, I don't think my friend is going to be there when I'm there. I don't know. But, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I'm going to be a little bit cautious and I'm going to definitely keep my eyes and ears open because I think that's something that's necessary. Here in Thailand, I kind of feel everything and I'm pretty well in tune with things, but you still got to watch yourself. One more thing before we get out of here. In Phuket, there is a new system in place for the bad foreigners. Immigration has launched a red card system that will see foreigners found guilty of 2 offenses deported from the country. This new system was announced at a press conference on March 1st, and under the system, a foreigner will be designated a yellow card for his first offense and will be issued a formal warning, and also the embassy will be, his or her embassy will be notified. After the foreigner completes the current stay and leaves the country, the foreigner will be denied permission to stay in Thailand for the next visit on the basis that the foreigner had conducted an unlawful act that caused trouble and behaved as a threat to society. This is if he gets a red card. If a foreigner is found guilty of a second offense during the same period of stay, the foreigner will have the permit to stay in Thailand revoked and will be sent back to their country. So they'll be deported. Now, what's interesting, hey, thank you, Beeson. Thank you very much. Choke D to you. Now, what's interesting is they're talking about little things, which I think this is a bit overkill. However critical to the policy announced today, Major General Prappansak did not define exactly what level or type of crime an unlawful act would be considered for a first or second offense. Of note, the types of offenses mentioned at the press conference focused on traffic violations such as not wearing a helmet when riding a motorbike, not having the correct driver's license, and dangerous driving. Now, I kind of find this laughable, and the reason is because maybe they should worry about their own people before they go after the people who they want to come to the country to contribute to their society. I think the foreigners need to adhere to the laws as well, but they can't even keep the Thais in check. How many Thais do you know that wear helmets all the time? How many times do you see Thais? Oh, thank you. Very good. I'm glad to hear it. How many times do you hear or see a whole family on a motorcycle? You see some Thai guy and his girlfriend or his wife, their kids, they've got a little kid standing on the little piece in the center, standing while he's driving, and then the wife's carrying a baby. Now that cannot be legal. How come they're not approaching these people? And then none of them have helmets on. If the baby falls, what's going to happen? I always worry about that. Or they got 2 propane tanks sitting on the back of a motorcycle strapped on with a bungee cord. Meanwhile, the press conference proudly announced the arrest of foreigners caught breaking the law under the Phuket Crime-Free campaign. Okay, how about they attack the mafia down there? The Thai mafia. Let's see here. The press conference focused on highlighting what action police had taken against foreigners. Yippee! Assuring that the arrest of such foreigners was of paramount importance to the safety of the people on the island, for the preservation of Phuket as a world-class tourism destination. You see, again, I'm going to say this. Much of the time, they are so worried about their image, and this is a big thing. They want to save face. They want to look good. They want to keep up appearances. I've told this story many times, but I might not have talked about this for quite some time. But, you get some guy, he's got 20,000 baht to his name. He starts a new job, or he just gets paid, and he needs some new clothes to go to work in so that he looks good, and he needs to make sure that he gets there, and so he's on time, and so he basically pisses away his whole check in a day so that he makes sure that he's dressed good, he looks the part. And then for the rest of the month, he's borrowing money or he's eating, with his mother so that he can eat rice and fish. That is true, and that happens here. So instead of worrying about keeping up appearances, how about, you do what you have to do? Not necessarily what you think you must do in order to keep the status quo and to save face. And the same goes when it comes to dealing with foreigners. While scant on details, it was confirmed that a foreign man had been arrested on an Interpol red notice as he was wanted by French authorities. Okay, if the guy had an Interpol red notice, there's generally a reason that they're on Interpol. You don't get on Interpol for nothing. Also touted was the arrest of 2 Russian suspects for a robbery, including cryptocurrency, and the arrest of French nationals for reckless driving, driving without a helmet, and driving without the correct driver's license needed for operating a vehicle in Thailand. The latter group of arrests, described as involving foreign tourists joining groups of motorcyclists in Patong, was branded as causing an annoyance and behavior that is a threat to society. This is such a joke. I mean, it's like, if we open up and have alcohol available 24 hours a day, this place is going to go to shit. No, it's not. People who want to drink alcohol will find the alcohol one way or the other. It's just, to me, it's just idiotic. But this is Thailand. It's their government. I have no say. And so I am allowed to think what I want to think, but other than that, I mean, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to cause a stink about it. I'm not going to go and try to get some petition signed to change things. I just don't, I don't need to do that. All right, Phuket Immigration, Patong Police, and Phuket Tourist Police had arrested French foreigners involved in the above, and they had arrested a foreigner for stealing a Thai job, tracking down and arresting a gang of Mongolians stealing from tourists in Patong, namely by pickpocketing, was also worthy of mention at the high-powered press conference. Apparently, the landlord of where the Mongolians were staying was issued a formal warning admonishing him to strictly comply with the law, but which law the landlord had broken was not explained. I don't know what this Traffy Fondue app that they're talking about. It's a means of filing complaints to authority, which has become a standard entry into nearly every local government report involving officials. Let's see here. Phuket Immigration Chief Police Colonel Tanet Sukchai called on all people to report illegal activities perpetrated by foreigners. Now listen, I don't know about you, I'm no snitch. The only reason that I would ever report anything, I mean, speaking in general, is if I saw something that was a grave injustice. A bunch of guys beating the hell out of somebody and you're wondering if the guy's going to live. Anything having to do with death. Anything having to do with a severe beating where life would be changed forever. That would be the only way. And the only way I would do it is if it would be anonymous. So I don't know if it is anonymous or not. While focusing on catching bad Farhan on the island, police at the press conference, what's a bad Farhan? Today made no mention of any ethical action taken against any of its own officers for engaging in criminal activity, including an officer from Chalong police attempting to extort 5,000 baht from a foreign tourist for illegally riding a motorbike through the Chalong underpass. Apparently there is now a drive-through window at the main immigration office, and I guess there's a long queue of vehicles waiting to be served. The window remains on the left side of the vehicles, meaning that any persons using the drive-through must still slide across and reach out the passenger window to pass their passport and other important documents to the officer serving them. Yeah, I don't really get that. I mean, okay, great. They should just move it all online if you ask me. Yeah, and I see there's a little comment here that I think is kind of telling. Retirees who have shifted their money and possessions to Thailand and generally import at least around $1 million baht a year or more can now be kicked out for not wearing a helmet twice. Does the yellow card drop away when a visa is renewed, or does it stay as a permanent gotcha? And I understand the need to clean up the city, but I would say they need to start with their own before they start with the foreigners. It's their own people. They're the ones causing the problems down in Phuket. And yes, there are some who cause problems that are foreigners, but I think they need to be dealt with as well. Here's another comment. Traffic offenses are not crimes, they are misdemeanors. At worst, very hypocritical to threaten to deport people for traffic violations that Thai people do on a daily basis and never get stopped for. Not wearing helmets, no valid license, reckless driving, all very common among locals, definitely. How about driving down the sidewalk? How about driving in the wrong direction? I'm on motorcycles and they do this, and I'm like, this is Thailand, you know. And also, the more Royal Thai police officers that are caught for corruption, the more they seem to blame and push back at the foreigners. Well, this is something that's common. Blame the foreigners, don't take responsibility. And of course, I am speaking about a very small percentage of Thais. When you look at it in the big picture, how many Thais are in there in Thailand? Well, how many people are in Thailand? Something like 70 million, 75 million. The percentage is very, very low. So, there you have it. There you go. These are some of the things going on. These are some of the ways to stay safe, stay out of trouble. If you really want to stay out of trouble, you will. You'll find a way to get out of it. If you want a problem, if you want trouble, it will find you. I work for an American company online. Guys should stop trying to get a job here and find a minimum wage online remote job. Trust me, much better, safer, and more money. Yeah, there are a number of ways to earn online, or not even online, but just every once in a while you go online and you do something and you talk to somebody, you email back and forth or whatever. There's a lot of ways. You know, I only went to the trailer on Beach Road. I was in the Phuket police station once. That was when I got into the fight and hit the lady boy, and then I hit the foreigner. That was a crazy time. And they found me because I was at this little print shop, and some guy came in. He was dressed as a lot of Thais dress that they tend to have a little bit of money. They wear a pair of like dark blue jeans, a nice button-down shirt. They have their boots on, or they have the big belt buckle and that kind of thing. And the guy's like, I'm the police. And I said, yeah, right, come on. And then he showed me his badge, and I went, oh. And then I saw the foreigner and his girlfriend, and then I started talking to him. And then we worked it out. By the time we got to the police station, which was only down the street, they were like, forget about it. And the police were like, oh, but you can get 40,000 baht. And the guy said, nope. And then, of course, they admonished me. That was 30 years ago. In Phuket, they can only pull over foreigners at traffic stops to catch tourists with no helmet, and Thais fly by with no helmet. Yeah, well, I think that's the point, is that if they're going to use this policy to get the bad farang, maybe they should worry about some of the Thais as well, at least to keep up appearances. So, anyway, that's all I have. Another stream gone by. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for the thumbs up. If you don't mind, if you like this and you haven't done so already, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, become a VIP member of the channel, or of my website, or of Patreon, or of whatever. Everything's down in the description. Like I said, there are things happening. There are a lot of videos to go up. And Don't forget to wear the most important helmet. Well, that's something that I didn't mention, but sex can be dangerous here. So make sure that if you are not in a serious relationship, to wrap your weasel. Hey, Jamie, how you doing? About 35 pounds, and it's coming off really slow now, but I'm working on it. I'm working on getting more off, and one of these days, when when I start showing a six pack again, I'll have to do a little photo thing with you. What about you? Are you still in the weight loss mode? Yeah, I don't like puke bags. Who likes puke bags? I don't even like the word puke. Thank you very much, Two Minds. I'd appreciate that. That helps. I'm glad you like it. Anyway, that's all we have. I'm not sure when I'll be streaming again. In the next few days, maybe Wednesday. Tomorrow, John Jones. Cereal gain, if you want to say it that way. It's Cyril, but he says cereal. I don't know if that's on purpose or not. What's it? Valentina Shevchenko, again, who trains in Phuket, versus Alexis Grasso. There's some good fights in the card, so I will be watching that tomorrow. I'd like to know if you guys want, leave it in the comments. Who do you think is going to win? Jones moving up to heavyweight, or Cyril Gane, who I think is a dangerous opponent, but I think Jones might be the smarter of the fighters, and if he can take the guy down, I think he's going to give him a beating. But I think it's a good fight. So I'll be watching at Buffalo Wild Wings. Are you still planning on coming over here, or what's the deal? Inquiring minds want to know. Mrs. Mallon said, when do I have to give the house a big thorough cleaning because Billy's coming over? The next time you come over to watch a fight, there might be a few chicks besides her here at the house. Anyway, I better go. I will talk to you guys soon. Let me give you the little why. Stay safe. Don't get in trouble. All that good stuff. My dog might have some issues. Oh. Well, that's not good. Well, eventually you'll get over here. I'll tell her. Eventually. He's coming eventually. All right, I got to get out of here. I'll talk to you guys soon, okay? What do I say? I'm Scott. I'm an American in Bangkok. Until next time, choke D, loud jerk and my. That's see you later. Choke D, good luck. See you later. Hasta la vista. Ciao.